Right now on the National Weather Desk, 1,000-year flood. How Fort Lauderdale is coping after 2 feet of rain swallows the South Florida community.
We lost everything.
See how shooken up I am.
No city could have planned for this.
That storm had nowhere to go.
Flooded streets. As Utah faces rising waters from rapid snowmelt, the worst could be yet to come.
That's going to cause us big problems.
Record heat. Summer-like weather brings people outdoors, but how long will it last?
An excuse to get out and enjoy the natural beauty.
Bird watching. Why now is the time in many places to get out and catch them on the move. And the story behind these cars as they emerge from their icy homes.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I'm Angela Brown. Fort Lauderdale's airport is finally reopening this morning after nearly 2 days after historic rainfall forced it to shut down. And thunderstorms could bring even more rain this afternoon. More than 2 feet of rain fell over a 48-hour period. That's in line to what a powerful hurricane would bring. Schools are closed for a second straight day today. At the airport, runways were underwater along with cars in the parking lots. People hoping to fly out were going nowhere.
People were sleeping on the conveyor belts. People were sleeping every little spot that they could.
They tried to find a gate for us so we could get out, but they all had about a foot and a half of water. So they finally found a gate and dropped us off. I'm going to try to find my luggage, which it doesn't look like it is anywhere.
And the problems go well beyond the airport. As Tavares Jones shows us, first responders rescue people trapped in their cars and homes.
A ride overcome with emotion for this group of residents in Fort Lauderdale as they escape the historic flooding that left their homes submerged, making it out just in the nick of time.
I didn't expect this because I've lived here since 1960. The same house. Never had a trouble with water in my house.
Several people disabled, other with mobility issues. One person blind, a woman pregnant, senior citizens, all looking for a way out of this historic flooding nightmare. Dozens of cars parked on the roads that now seem more like rivers. A few of them even dragged feet away by the currents.
Last night when I was going to bed, I said, this ain't good.
Many residents telling 7 News they chose to escape the flooding overnight. Some with the help of rescuers who've been hard at work, providing whatever help they can since midnight.
We were able to get back home last night, but we got barricaded in the house. The water was 2 feet up the sliding glass door, so you're literally looking out the aquarium seeing fish and frogs.
Others waiting for hours with no idea where to go or whether someone would be coming to help. Good Samaritans driving tow trucks, traveling across the high waters, checking for neighbors that need to be rescued. Some of them jumping aboard with their pets in tow. Others leaving their families behind, hoping to come back to get them out of the mess.
It's just stuff. It's just stuff. It doesn't matter. We're good. We're safe, and we're so grateful to you for getting us out of there. Thank you.
The flooding in Florida came as a surprise, with very few expecting that much rain. So how did all that happen? Meteorologist Jennifer Collins has some answers.
On Wednesday, we were tracking a low pressure system in the Gulf of Mexico and a warm front associated with it. We had a southwest wind flow above that frontal boundary, drawing in more moisture across South Florida. Now, when it comes to that specific storm in Fort Lauderdale, we had that southwest wind flow competing a low-level onshore wind flow. Essentially, what it means is that storm had nowhere to go but over coastal Broward County, dropping a significant amount of rainfall in just a 24-hour period. At the Fort Lauderdale International Airport, a weather stem meter recorded 25 inches of rain. The rest of Broward County recorded anywhere from 14 to 18 inches, and even in Miami-Dade County, a 13-inch report was recorded in Coconut Grove. If that 25-inch rainfall estimate stays, that would be the 4th top 24-hour rainfall record in the country, beating out the previous record of 23 inches set in Key West in 1980. Of course, that's an unofficial preliminary estimate, but certainly a significant amount of rainfall in just a 24-hour period.
The Salt Lake City region is also facing an influx of water, but for a very different reason. This year's historic snowpack is melting, sending water down the mountains and also into communities. The good news, a voluntary evacuation order has been lifted. It covered over 100 homes near an overflowing creek. The flooding here came after high temperatures on Tuesday and also on Wednesday topped the upper 70s. Cooler temperatures have now arrived, slowing the flow of water. Our station in Salt Lake spoke with a hydrologist hired to help them manage the water.
This runoff that he's seen so far ranks up there as some of the highest that he's ever seen in all of his time of doing this. His name is Brian McInerney, and he said that he went into the watershed a little bit earlier today to specifically look for what he calls isothermal snowpack, which is the snow that's the same temperature from the top to the bottom when he makes his measurement, which is really just kind of a scientific way of saying that is snow that can melt with just a couple degrees of a warm-up. He said he did find those conditions at about 6,000 feet that is yielding water melt. Brian went on to say that the south-facing aspect is typically the very first to melt off, and the north-facing aspect melts a little later. I asked him if that's what he saw. Here's what he had to say.
That wasn't the case this year. We had south-facing aspects melting. We had north-facing aspects melting up to 6,000 feet, 6,500 feet, and it all came down at one time, and that's the problems you see here. I think the wild card in this entire picture is if we get a widespread long-duration rainfall on the mountains sometime late April into May. That's going to cause us big problems.
And here's a sure sign of spring from Lake Tahoe. Cars that have been frozen or buried in snow for months are now starting to thaw and reappear, as you can see here. These pictures were taken earlier this week. Maybe now there's enough snow melting for someone to maybe drive or get those cars out of there. The 2023 hurricane season could be the least active in 8 years. That's according to the new forecast released on Thursday from Colorado State University. West Palm Beach meteorologist Lauren Oleski explains what's behind that prediction.
Colorado State University issued their forecast for the 2023 hurricane season earlier today. They're calling for a near to slightly below average season with 13 named storms. 6 hurricanes and 2 major hurricanes. That's category 3 or greater. We normally see 14 named storms, 7 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. One of the reasons for that slightly below average number is because of the increased probability that El Nino will be developing during the peak of the Atlantic hurricane season, August, September, October. An 82% chance right now that El Nino will be developing. When El Nino is in place, that will suppress the development of hurricanes. Now, we have to watch for how strong the El Nino is going to be, because if it's a weak El Nino, it might not necessarily do much to reduce our Atlantic hurricane activity. If it's stronger, that's better for us. When El Nino is in place, it reduces hurricane activity because it increases the wind shear across the Atlantic basin and also increases the subtropical high. However, we've got warmer than average sea surface temperatures. That's more favorable for more hurricane activity. We have those two factors working against each other. We'll watch closely. Hurricane season starts on June 1st.
There's an early taste of summer hovering over the Midwest and also the Northeast. Some states could set record-setting temperatures as much as 30 degrees above normal for this time of the year. John Lowrink is in Rhode Island with a look at how people are taking advantage of the warmer weather.
It's only mid-April, but some parts of the nation are being greeted with July-like conditions.
Kind of forget that Rhode Islanders on a nice day skip everything and come to the beach. But today is the perfect day for that to do.
The National Weather Service says some states will see temperatures 25 to 35 degrees above average for this time of year, mainly across the Midwest and Northeast.
Excuse to get out and enjoy the natural beauty of the earth and the water.
Numerous heat highs were reported Thursday, including Boston and Hartford, Connecticut, where both cities beat daily records set in 1977. Providence, Rhode Island, topped its previous record from 1945.
We biked here from our house down the street because we knew parking was going to be horrible because there's a lot of college students from URI since everyone lives in Narragansett. But I don't think it's too crowded. I think this is pretty normal.
And although the sun was hot, some beachgoers in the Northeast are staying on the sand, at least for now.
Tried to go in the water. It's a little cold, but we might jump in like that guy because he seems to be having a blast.
Well, not everyone can be so lucky with the warm weather. Right now, Western Australia is getting walloped by a powerful cyclone. The storm broke wind speed records when it smashed into the coast, making landfall late Thursday night with the strength of a Category 4 hurricane in the Atlantic. The storm has weakened and moves further inland. And now, coming up on the National Weather Desk, birds are making their way north as the weather warms. We'll show you how you can help them as they migrate home.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with Look the Northeast. Temperatures are going to surge back into the 70s and 80s again this afternoon, feeling like midsummer for parts of New England. As we go throughout the afternoon, a sea breeze will knock those temperatures back at the coastline, though. Here we are, 7 a.m. Notice by afternoon, we're starting to see temperatures cool a little bit for parts of Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maine, New Hampshire. Then on Saturday, more clouds will start to increase. Temps stay on the mild side. Our best chance for showers will be late in the day through southern New England.
I'm meteorologist Amy Aronson, and here's a look at the mid-Atlantic region. We are looking forward to another summery day on Friday. Temperatures will soar into the 70s and eventually right into the low 80s again. This weekend, not quite as warm, but that's because we're tracking our next weather maker. That's going to bring us some much-needed rain. Friday's dry, but we should see the first showers trickle in as we get into Friday evening, and they will continue on and off, unfortunately, on Saturdays. We need the rain, but the timing far from ideal with on and off showers throughout Saturday. And that's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vetus Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for today. Looking at Nashville, 75, 69 in Birmingham, 78 in Raleigh, warmer over in Charleston at 80 degrees, Pensacola 77, 85 in Tampa. We're seeing a warm front push to the north. Area of low pressure spinning over northern portions of Alabama today, up around Atlanta, getting some showers and over towards Chattanooga. We'll continue to see that low push further north as we go through the overnight, giving us some clearing and nice conditions for the weekend.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
In Wisconsin, the weather has gone from winter to spring almost overnight, and all that snow that was on the ground is now flooding into local waterways, making things difficult for local fishermen. Eric Peterson has more.
With waters about 6 inches above the flood stage, launching a boat at Riverside Park in New London was a challenge. John Fauché says weather in the area has been unpredictable.
It's just hard to believe the city took their ice rink down today. And it's hard to believe 2 weeks ago we were pushing icebergs away from our docks and everything.
He says melting snow and seasonal spring runoff are expected on this part of the Wolf River. Officials issued a slow no-wake order last week.
And that's slow no wake within 500 feet of a permanent structure. Right now they're concerned more with people's property, docks and boat launch facilities, houses, lawns.
Paul Webb not only fishes the river, he has a home along the shoreline.
I've lived on the river for the last 7 years, and so when the water gets up high, I've had it 10 feet from my house already, and some people have their houses flooded.
Wow.
So it definitely, high water is a big factor.
The springtime draws anglers to this part of the Wolf River searching for walleye. John Fauché expects conditions to improve ahead of a 3-day tournament starting Friday.
It's right down in the park down here at Riverside Park.
Okay.
They're obviously watching the water levels.
Yeah.
It looks like they're good to go for their event this weekend.
It's not just Wisconsin where flooding is an issue. In California, the melting snow at higher elevations is causing severe flooding, prompting officials to close many lakes and rivers in the region, meaning no boating or kayaking or even swimming. But that's not stopping some people from hopping into the water. Sophia Lesios is in Fresno and explains why it's not just drowning that is a risk, but also hypothermia.
This is for your safety, and it's also for the safety of our personnel.
Fresno County Sheriff's Office is reminding people the Kings River, as well as the San Joaquin River, is closed.
It's just extremely dangerous to be on the water right now. It's reaching levels it never has before, so you're going to hit hazards that were never there in the past, and it just presents a lot of dangers to your life.
Access to anything recreational on the rivers, which includes boating, canoeing, kayaking, and swimming, is not allowed.
We know it's very restricting for people. They feel that their freedom's being stripped. We understand that. I mean, it's a natural waterway and you want to go out and enjoy it. But the sheriff has to put these measures in place for the greater good of the community.
Right now, the San Joaquin River is close to streaming 70,000 gallons of water a second. And the Kings River is flowing at 82,000 gallons, according to the sheriff's office.
Very swift water. Anybody that goes out there can see that the levels are a lot higher than in the years past.
The sheriff's office says deputies have only had a few issues with people not obeying the closure signs, including these rafters a couple weeks ago and people swimming at Reedley Beach. Just do yourself a favor and stay out of the water.
The water's about 50 degrees right now. It can easily take about 30 minutes for hypothermia to set in.
The heavy rain and storms in California are contributing to rising tides and grasses, creating a new concern, an above-average season for tick-borne illnesses. Will Silverstein shows us why concern is high and ways you can protect yourself from ticks regardless of where you live.
High grasses like this one next to the river can be a hotbed for disease-carrying insects, whether they're mosquitoes or ticks.
I fish up around Kern River Valley and areas like that where the deer ticks are pretty thick. Me and my sons, we will apply this.
Knight, who deals primarily with mosquitoes in Kern County, highly recommends insect repellent to ward off both mosquitoes and ticks, who can often be found in the same areas. High river levels of the Kern River could lead to an increase of disease-carrying insects.
Ticks also seem to gravitate toward moist, cool environments.
Michelle Corson with Kern County Public Health says if you notice you have been bit by a tick, brush first, pinch second.
If you find that you have a tick that is attached, you are going to want to quickly try to brush it off. And if it doesn't brush off, you're going to want to use tweezers and gently pull the tick out as soon as possible.
But how do we do our best to avoid ticks in the first place?
So really to prevent it, we recommend, when you are hiking, trying to wear long sleeves as much as possible, long sleeves, pants, socks, etc. So that way they're not able to kind of get into those small areas.
And to not forget about Knight's preferred insect repellents. Now, Knight says to look for insect repellent that has more than 25% of active ingredient.
And the winter storms in California continue to have far-reaching impacts. Beekeepers in the state have taken a hit following the heavy rain. They say the excess water, winds, and freezing temperatures extended pollination time by 5 to 6 weeks this year. Many beekeepers had hives perish from all the wet weather. Because of the rain, bees had shorter flight days and they were not able to make their own food. There is some good news, however. Despite all of that, the honey crop is still predicted to be above average in California this year. Spring is bird migration season, and 142 million birds are expected to make their northern trip. And for folks in the Virginia area, this week was the first big push. Mandy Bartholomew has a look at how the birds make their way back home and tips on how you can help them on their journey.
So early May and late April is the best time to see a large number of migrating songbirds primarily through this area.
Some birds have already made their way to Virginia for spring migration, but the Wildlife Center of Southwest Virginia says the ones coming are worth getting the binoculars out to see.
So some of our most colorful birds, such as Baltimore orioles, scarlet tanagers, and even indigo buntings. Those are birds that migrate from other places. And so those beautiful, colorful birds and their beautiful songs are going to be coming back to Virginia soon.
But there are some things you can do to protect the flocks coming in.
Turning off your lights at night on these high migration push nights, doing so throughout this spring season and again in the fall is very important for the survivability of these birds.
Haley Olson-Hodges says birds migrate at night to avoid predators and they use the stars as a guide. She says birds can interpret any outdoor light as stars, which can lead them to hit windows on buildings and cause internal and external injuries to the birds.
I found a bird, it seemed fine after 30 minutes and let it go. That worked, that was the way of the world, several years ago, but now we've done research and we know that there's a lot more going on. And if we can save those birds, especially if they're birds that are migrants, that are those declining species, we can really make a difference.
Have plans this weekend? The weather should cooperate in many parts of the nation tomorrow. In New England, it won't be quite as warm as the last 2 days, but temperatures in Rhode Island should approach 70 degrees, but stay out of the water. Ocean temps are just 50 degrees. The beaches of South Carolina will be much more inviting this weekend. It should be sunny with highs in the upper 70s tomorrow. The ocean is still at chilly, 65. And maybe you're headed to a lake, maybe like in the Ozarks. Unfortunately, it's looking like rain here in central Missouri, but the temps will be in the upper 70s, water temperatures in the upper 50s, and maybe you're planning to attend a baseball game. Let's say Cincinnati, they're taking on Philadelphia this weekend. There could be a stray shower tomorrow, but it'll be warm with highs in the 70s, and we will be right back.
Well, good Friday, everyone. I'm meteorologist Phil Kelly. The focus for the forecast really for most of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley is strong cold front, which is going to come through. Out ahead of that, temperatures still very mild. A few isolated showers along the Ohio River for your Friday, and out ahead of that cold front. But the stronger weather and the colder air back behind that starts to move in on Saturday. That rain then slides toward Ohio on Sunday, giving the region a good chance of showers and storms.
Well, good Friday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Chris Suchan. Look at our forecast today across the region, and we'll be on the lookout from Tulsa, Oklahoma City down through Dallas-Fort Worth for a possibility of getting a strong to severe storm through the day. Otherwise, sunshine's back. Arkansas, Louisiana, 70s and 80s. More humidity across Texas. We head into Saturday's forecast. The risk for some strong to severe storms from Little Rock down into East Texas. High temperatures, 80s, some 90s across Texas.
Good morning, everyone. Meteorologist Kristen Clark as we track the weather makers across the West. It's a sharp front moving through the Four Corners and Denver. You may see snow by Friday night, a trace to maybe 2 inches up and down the I-25 corridor, and gusty winds in New Mexico will only increase the brush fire potential with the winds and also the relatively warm conditions in the upper 60s. But high pressure keeps the Pacific Northwest dry for the final day of the work week. That's like the weather from here.
Weather Window, presented by the National Weather Desk.
Rain in Alabama made for some great rainbow sightings earlier this week. These photos were captured near Mobile. In Utah, it was snow that made for some great scenes, like this buffalo covered in a fresh dusting of snow. In western Montana, it was horses who had to deal with their latest snow. But clear skies in Pennsylvania led to this stunning shot just before dawn.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Twitter.
Did you know that weather radar can pick up a lot more than just the weather? Meteorologist Natalie Walters has a look at what else can be seen on Doppler radar.
Did you know that Doppler radar can pick up more than just rain? In fact, here's a great example of it. This is a massive fire in Richmond, Indiana. What you're seeing here is the smoke plume traveling eastward with a westerly wind. And here's a picture of the massive industrial fire. They have ordered an evacuation for people living within a half a mile of this fire. And here's another picture of that fire from over 40 miles away. Radar also picks up on other things like birds, bats, and even swarms of bugs.
And before we go to break, a quick look at a rocket the European Space Agency launched this morning. Is headed to Jupiter to study the largest planet in the solar system and 3 of its moons. The trip will take 8 years. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Angela Brown. Have a great weekend. We'll see you right back here on Monday.